the Gail Estella, survival politics. The pain becomes purpose, no fear, no remorse. Say it again. Through the pain, through the fire, through the worst of my day, I found purpose in the breaking. Right there. Survival isn't a whisper. Go if you listen, you survive. Still breathing, still alive. God never wastes the hurting. Every chapter had a rolling down.
This is Gail Estella, and welcome to the Gail Estella Survival Podcast.
Where pain comes purpose. No fear, no remorse. Survival isn't a whisper. Through the worst of my day. And the breaker isn't no whisper.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. This is Gail Estella, and welcome to the Gail Estella Survival Podcast. Here's where we turn pain into purpose, because survival isn't a whisper, it's a roar. And before we get started, there's a few things I need from you. The first thing is, will you please go and like, share, and subscribe to the Gail Estella Survival Podcast? Secondly, where are you tuning in from? Put in the comment box below where you're tuning in from. I'm here in Aiken, South Carolina. Are you following me on all of my social media platforms? If not, will you please do so at Gail Estella? And lastly, Through It All by Gail Estella. Have you purchased your copy yet? If you haven't, it's not too late. You can go to TrueVinePublisherCompany.org, Amazon.com, or anywhere books are sold. My guest for this evening, I met him, and I'm going to have to read my card on this one. I met him as a little boy in the hair salon with his mother. I've had the honor of watching him grow into a credible young man that he is today. And he has such a powerful story. I am going to introduce you to Mr. Christopher Potts.
How are you, Miss Gail?
I am doing well. How are you doing? How are you doing?
I am blessed and highly favored. Just glad to be seeing him another Monday. Yes.
I usually don't read off of my index cards in the beginning or my note cards. But while preparing for tonight and reflecting on our previous conversation, I thought about all the things that you had experienced and all the things that you had endured, and I wasn't quite sure on how to segue into our conversation.
Yes,
so I'm going to start here. First of all, I want to ask you, what matters the most to you in this season?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I as you said in the introduction, we've known each other since I was born, and so, bright-eyed, bushy tail, snotty nose, little kid. And so, I'm always appreciative of the kind words that people say to me and about me. What matters most to me in this season is my mental health, my love for God, my children and my family. And just knowing that no matter what happens in this life, we have to keep pressing forward.
We have to keep pressing forward.
Yes, ma'am.
And that little boy that used to come in the salon with his mother, he was always so mannerable. He was always so polite. He was yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And I can remember I was in a car accident. And I don't know if you remember this. I was in a car accident on Heckle Boulevard. This was a long time ago. And you passed by and you looped back around and you stopped and you asked me, Miss Gail, are you okay? And I just gave you a hug. I was like, Chris, thank you. Because I just thought that was so kind and polite of you.
Yes.
Can you remember that, Chris?
I'm getting older. I didn't say I'm getting older. I'm getting older. And I vaguely remember it. But, honestly, Miss Gail, what I would do for you and what I did for you, I've got to do that for everybody. You know, it's all about paying forward. You know, I would hope that someone would treat my mother or my family the same way. So when I'm doing things out in the community, if I see someone that needs help, that's what's going through my head. Like, what would my mother do, or what would I want someone to do for my mother or my family? So, you know, I am grateful that you remember that.
I do.
So,
Yeah.
you brought it back to my mind, but it's just a blessing to see you here, and I'm glad everything worked out well.
Yes, thank you. You said the things that matter to you most. You said your mental health. You said God. You said family, your children, being a father. So let's talk about being a father first,
Okay.
because I witnessed you as a father and I see the type of father that you are. So let's talk about being a father. What does fatherhood means to you?
That is a great question. I don't think I can sum it up in one word. I think if I had to sum it up in one word, it's love. I think that sometimes we get so focused on providing the things that we didn't have as a child to our children that we forget to give them the fundamental things that they need, whether it's love, respect, kindness. One thing I always tell my children is that my job isn't to give you everything that you want. It's to give you some of the things that you want and provide everything that you need. And sometimes you can't put a price on those things that they need, which is love. Knowing that, no matter what you go through in life, dad is always going to be there. And I think at the end of the day, I want them to say that, you know what, no matter what happened in life, when God called me to glory, my kids can say, you know what, my dad wasn't perfect, but he loved me. He protected me. He provided for me. Even when he worked my last nerve and I worked his last nerve, my dad was always there. Mm-hmm. So I think if I had to sum it up in one word, it's love.
Love. And I also hear the word security.
Security. Yes. Security. And that could be, we can use that word and it can be stressed around across so many different spectrums of the word security. Security could be financial, security could be physical, emotional, mm-hmm. It could be internal, it could be external. Mm-hmm. I think security probably is a better word than love sometimes when it comes, because love can encompass so many different things, but security can encompass so many different things as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So tell us about your children. How many children do you have?
So I have 4 children. So London, Justice, CJ, and Chloe. So London is my oldest. She's 19 years old. She's a sophomore at USC Beaufort Bluffton. So she's near the water, which she enjoys. Then my second oldest is Justice Potts. So I have 2 older girls. She's 18. She's a senior at York Preparatory Academy. She's actually going to USC Beaufort Bluffton as well in the fall. So I have 2 daughters there. My son, Chris Jr., who's 12, he goes to Indiana Intermediate. And then my baby girl, my youngest, is Chloe. She's 3. So there's a big age gap there. So 19, 18, 12, and 3.
19, 18, 12, and 3. Once Chloe was born, CJ was the baby for a long time. Yeah. How was that when he saw his new little sister for him after being the baby?
So the first thing that came to mind was another girl. So he wasn't too thrilled at first, but, seeing her once she was born, because she was actually supposed to be born Christmas Day of 2022. And she came 3 days early, And so it was an early Christmas present. And so, he loves his baby sister. He's protective over her. And, all the children get along so well with each other. And so it's definitely a blessing. They all enjoy each other.
That's a blessing. So let's talk about CJ.
Okay.
CJ has autism.
Yes.
Tell us, how old are you now, Chris?
I am 43.
You're 43 and CJ's 12. Okay. So you were roughly about 31
Yes,
when
ma'am.
CJ was born.
Yes.
How was it for a 31-year-old young man to hear the word autistic or autism? And the doctors were referring to his only boy, his namesake.
Yes.
How was that for you?
You know what? It didn't bother me, Miss Gail. I think some people may have looked at that as a setback. And for me, it wasn't a setback. It was just, okay, he has a learning disability. At the end of the day, he just learns differently than other people. And so he's high functioning. He will sit there and have a conversation with you. Sometimes he talks too much. I'm like, all right, buddy, you got to go do something. Dad needs a break. But, I think his mother and I caught the diagnosis very early. We just started noticing different things while he was in daycare. And, one of his providers, not providers, but one of his educators had said, hey, you know what? We're starting to notice some different things. And maybe you want to get him checked out and tested because his actual diagnosis is SPD, sensory processing disorder. And so, loud, sharp noises, anything that's really loud, he'll just kind of cover his ears and everything. But it falls under the autistic spectrum.
Okay.
And so I think he was 3 or 4 when he was diagnosed. And so we were able to get him to his occupational therapist, to the providers, everyone that needed to be in his corner to make sure he's successful. So we're looking at 8 to 9 years of being in some type of setting where he's learning, where there's providers there that's going to make sure they're successful. He has a psychiatrist, he has a therapist, and I've just seen him flourish. Does he have his bad days? He does, but who doesn't have bad days?
Right.
And so I've just seen, the young man he's becoming. He just made A&B honor roll again. And so yeah, we worked hard for him A&B. So, but he's in sports. He helps out. He helps feed the homeless with his grandmother at church. He helps lead some of the other kids that are, that may have some challenges, and they look up to CJ. And so that just shows me that the things that we're doing have been successful and that he's progressing forward where he needs to be.
I like that. I want to go back to when you said that his educator, confronted you and your wife about him, the possibilities to have him checked out. I have heard so many different stories, and yours is one of the most unique ones because most people initially, they be in denial, they get angry, they don't adhere to the recommendations from the teachers or whomever the caretaker is of their child because they don't want to accept that something may be different with their child. And therefore, the child goes, like you said, y'all caught it early. But then some children get passed along, they get labeled, they get left behind because that attention and that care is not given to them because a lot of times our parents don't want to accept the possibility that it could be something different going on with their child. So what do you think about that?
So if we're using the example of like my son with autism, I look at it just like what if he had dyslexia? What if he had ADHD? What if there was other, learning disabilities and it wasn't autism? He's still going to need the services and the help. And so I think for me, it's, I can either sit here and be upset about the situation, or I can say, you know what, I'm not going to let my son fall through the cracks. So I'm going to give him the services and everything he needs to be successful. One thing that I myself and his mother, we pride ourselves on is, one, we don't need the educator to be the parent. Children, this is my own personal opinion, children aren't meant to go to school for you to raise them. Your job is to educate them and teach them. Leave the parenting to us. And so I've made it very clear with all of my children when I spoke to an educator, and I've always been nice and respectful, but I let it be known that, hey, look, I'm going to need you to teach my child. I'll be the parent. And I'm not going to be one of those parents that I expect you to do everything. When there's an issue, I'm a phone call away, I'm an email away. Let me know, because we both want the same thing for that child, my child, or anybody's child to be successful, to be productive citizens in this world. So guess what? If it means they've got some kind of learning disability, it happens. It is okay. It's not the end of the world. There's been so many people that that I know that have been very successful in life that had some kind of learning disability, but they didn't let that stop them.
Yes.
So,
and you keep using the word learning disability, because when you said it was autism, but what if it had been, you said ADHD or some other dyslexia, other forms of learning disabilities, but you never said anything about physical disabilities. I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah,
because a lot of times when we're told that our children have asthma, or our children may have, Lord forbid, I had to hear cancer or diabetes, childhood diabetes, any type of physical illness, we are quick to take them to the doctor and to get the second opinion, another opinion, to make sure they get all the help that they need. But when we hear the word learning disability, a lot of times parents may feel that is a shun, that people may look at your child, a stigma.
yes.
It's a stigma. They may not want them to take the medication for the ADHD, especially in our community. Parents, that child just need a good butt whipping, or they just need a whipping, they just need more discipline in their lives. Or, if they go, and I hear the story all the time, if they go to school and, it's recommended they get an IEP or a 504 plan, they don't want that. And I speak from experience, because I've talked to clients, because Asia had an IEP after her brain cancer. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to clients, with their children, but get them on an IEP program, or
yes.
Well, I don't think they need that right now. I don't know, but it's giving them a fair chance at learning.
Exactly.
It's acknowledging where they are and giving them a fair chance to be that successful, productive citizen of society.
And you're absolutely right. And to piggyback on what you were saying about the difference between the physical and the learning disabilities, like you said, it's a stigma or a taboo to say, okay, well, if you use an example of childhood diabetes, you're like, okay, you're going to get a second or third opinion. And what sometimes people don't understand is, even with learning disabilities, like for autism, with CJ's particular path towards the diagnosis, was we spoke to his primary care doctor first. And then there was another set of tests that we had to have completed, before he actually got diagnosed with autism. So it wasn't just a one and done. It was a series of tests that helped us understand what to look for, but also helped understand what we need to tell his educators.
Yes.
So sometimes people think, oh, well, they just say it one time. Well, no, it may not be autism. It may be something different. But if you don't do the process and the protocols to see what's going on, like you said, you're one, you're part of the problem, and two, you're setting up that child to not be successful. There's so many programs out there, like CJ has an IEP. All different types of things. Like, I check in with his teachers almost every day. They send charts home, let us know what's going on. I am, if quote unquote, a helicopter parent, that's me, and I'm proud to be a helicopter parent, because if that means that my child's going to be successful, then, that's what matters at the end of the day.
Advocacy.
Yes, man, advocacy. Exactly. 100% correct.
Yes. Where did you learn to be the father that you are?
That is a very tricky question. I think a lot of it was just growing up. My parents worked, and so I learned good work ethic from my father and my stepfather and my mother, but I also learned just to be the caring, loving, compassionate type of parent. Honestly, from my mother and my grandmother.
Mm.
My grandmother was very instrumental in me growing up and raising me because my parents worked and they worked hard. And so I felt like I had a good balance of, okay, this is the things you need to be successful in life. A good work ethic, put your head down, work hard, just know that better days are ahead, just keep pressing forward. But I also learned from my grandmother was that, it's okay to be kind. It's okay to love. It's okay to let your children know that you love them. It's okay to let them know that, they're the most important thing in your life, in their life, and so those helped shape me as I grew to say, you know what, I want you, and this is me talking to my kids, like, I want you to know that I always love you. Like, no matter what you do, you may work my last nerve, and they do, but, at the end of the day, I love you more than life itself. You're my sun, moon, and stars, So, I think, and again, it goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. I always want I always want my children to know that when, God calls me home, that Dad loved me. Dad loved us. He was always there. And so I think the things I do, I strive to be that parent. I think at the end of the day, I want them to be proud to say, this is my dad, and that means a lot to me.
So were you the kid that got the affirmations from your father? Were you the kid that got the security from your father? Were you the kid that got the hugs and the open communication from your father? Did you receive those things as a little boy? Because, a lot of times men, they may be one way with their daughters and a different way with their sons. So were you that kid that got everything that you just said that you give your children?
If I'm being completely transparent, I don't think I did. And it's not that if we're talking about my father, it's not that he didn't love me. I know he loves me unconditionally. I just think that sometimes, if we look at culture, if we look at history and generations, a lot of times those things that are asked of our parents, they didn't get themselves.
Yes.
So it's a struggle. Mm-hmm. It's a struggle for them to be able to give that. You can't give something you never received in that same way. Mm-hmm. And so I know that my father loved me, and he loves me, loves me unconditionally. I just think that because I didn't get those things, I wanted to make sure that I gave those things to my children, and I think that sometimes that gets lost in translation. We get so focused on, well, I didn't get this, so what makes you think that you're entitled to get this? And that's really something that, a generational thing we have to break.
Yes.
Especially with having a child that's special needs, that has a disability, they're very empathetic. So they need that constant praise, to make sure that they're doing right. And then with me having 3 girls, I have to show them that, hey, this is what you should expect from your significant other.
Yes. And that was one of my questions, was going to be one of my questions. With your girls, do you, because I see you different holidays, different events, you take each one of them out on dates, you have both of them together, the 3 of you are dressed up, the 2 of you are dressed up. So you're setting the pathway of how they're supposed to be treated from their significant others. Do you also esteem them, praise them? what do you do to make them feel good about themselves as little girls? So their esteem and confidence is high enough when they start dating that they can recognize healthy and unhealthy relationships.
Well, I think the first goal was I never wanted them to date. It's like I want you to be about 50 before you started dating. But I think a lot of it was actions and trying to speak positivity in their lives. One thing my children will tell you, especially my two oldest daughters will tell you, is that, I try to listen and give my opinion based off of the information that I'm receiving. So I never want to play sides, like, well, this or this or that, and I'm like, well, maybe it was meant this way, maybe it was meant that way. I try to get them to understand that there's compromise and that sometimes communication will try to figure out and fix whatever's going on. So part of it is helping them understand what healthy communication looks like. The second thing is showing them that, hey, you are a queen. My son is a young king, so never expect less than that. And so that means I'm giving them flowers because Lord knows Valentine's Day, I buy so many roses. And to this day, I think probably up to last year, I was still giving them Easter baskets.
Yeah. I did that until Asia died.
Yeah. So, it was just different things to try to help them to understand that this is what a healthy, productive relationship and family unit looks like. Is it perfect? No relationship, no family unit is perfect, but if you try to stay positive and do the best that you can, then everything else will fall in line.
Mm-hmm. And it will. And you're changing and you're breaking the cycle. You're changing the trajectory of young men. And I just love young men now, this age group, because they talk about their feelings. They communicate more. Mm-hmm. And that's good for the women in their lives. And that's good for the men in little boys in their lives, because they don't have to feel they have to be so hard.
Yes,
they can be who they are. Let's talk about your mom. Mm-hmm. I remember Beverly firm, loving. What else can I say? God-fearing.
Yeah.
She was a great mother to you and Michaela. Mm-hmm. And she got her hair done every other week. So she was a good client to Beverly.
Yes. That's why I got locks now. Just make it easy.
She was a good client to Beverly. But at some point in time, and I remember seeing this on Facebook, and I was really surprised because I didn't know that she sponsored a survivors ball.
Yes, ma'am.
And I read, and she sponsored this survivors ball for other women that had endured, was it just breast cancer or any type of cancer that they might have survived from?
Yeah, so the survivors ball, the cancer ball that she threw back in October of last year, specifically was for her coming out of breast cancer, stage 2 breast cancer. But the invitation went out to anybody, a woman that was affected by any type of form of cancer. With my mother being a 2-time cancer survivor, she wanted to make sure that everyone felt seen and loved and just enjoyed themselves.
I love it. So when your mom was diagnosed, how were you the first time she was diagnosed?
So she had a different form of cancer back in 2007. So I was, I gotta do the math now. I wasn't 30 yet. I was in my late 20s.
Okay, again.
Yeah, so this was
young man.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, as a young man. This was before CJ's diagnosis.
So this is my first daughter was born.
Okay.
First cancer. This is 2006, 2007. So London was the only one that was here at that time.
Okay. And how was that for you, hearing that your mother had cancer?
The first time, I think a little nervous. Because, you don't know what to expect. And unfortunately, cancer, well, not unfortunately, but fortunately, cancer doesn't run in our family. So there's not a genetic history of people having cancer. So when you either that one out of so many generations, you're like, okay, well, what's going on? And so I think it was eye opening to kind of see what she was going through and the toll it took on her. I think the second time around when she was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer, I was sad, but it didn't hit me as hard, Miss Gail, because my mother's a trooper. She's a soldier, and I'd always tell her, and I've told her countless times, that everyone else is going to sit here and feel sorry for you. I'm not going to do that. I said, you're going to come out of it because you've dealt with this before. I said, but I'm not here to bring you down. So one thing she always told me, and she tells me to this day, never let them see you sweat. And so I said, well, now you've got to do the same thing.
So what does that mean, never let them see you sweat? So
people in life will do things to just try to hurt you. It's an unfortunate thing. But I think the way my mother views that and the way she's taught me and my sister and her grandchildren is that just because they want to take the worst and see the worst in you, don't give them that luxury. Don't let them have that kind of control. Don't let them take your peace. Don't let them steal your peace. And you may be burning up inside, but when you put a smile on your face,
And so does not letting them see you sweat, is that the same thing as not opening up about your feelings, not being true about your feelings, acknowledging your feelings? No. Okay.
It's two different things. One, what you're referring to, that is opening up communication. Yes. I'm all about accountability.
Okay.
And so if I don't like something, I'm going to tell you I don't like it. Now I can be cordial about it, but I'm going to tell you I don't like it. Mm-hmm. But if someone's purposely trying to hurt you,
purposely
trying to hurt you,
yes.
So don't give them the satisfaction of seeing you hurt. Don't give them the satisfaction of seeing them bringing you down. Because once you take that power back, what else do they have?
Nothing.
It's like saying you can't argue with yourself.
Yes.
So why give them the energy? Why give the energy? Everything around us has some type of energy. So why give people that energy that don't deserve it?
That's true.
Yes,
that's true. And your mom is doing well today, and thank God.
She rung her last bell last year, and she won't sit still now. Like, put your butt down, please. Like, I'm tired here. Like, I don't want to do anything. Just sit down. But she's doing well. She's actually going to have the cancer ball again this year.
Nice.
Prayerfully, this is going to be something every year, that she has. And so she's excited about it. She's already prepping for it. And so we hopefully, God willing, that we'll celebrate again.
And just continue. I pray that it continues to grow and get larger and larger and larger, because everyone wants to be celebrated. So it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful gesture.
Yes, ma'am.
You said something about mental health. Let's talk about the grand mal seizure. And I looked that up. And it says the grand mal seizure is followed by a loss of consciousness, muscle stifling. That's the tonic phase, and then violent jerking. Mm-hmm. So tell us about the grand mal seizure that you experienced, and we're going to let that be our segue into the mental health part.
Okay. I don't remember everything of when it happened. So in life, we all have stressors, right? We stress, and unfortunately, stress can manifest in us in different ways, right? Some people, it could be in a loss of appetite. Some people, it could be an increase in appetite. It could be sleeplessness, oversleeping, any type of things. Unfortunately, with high levels of stress, it manifests in a seizure. You know, this has only happened once in the last, one other time in the last 20 years. But, you know, for me, usually the signs are heavy loads of stress. And then they have what's called what's it called? A stress fever, or, you know, something where you just feel warm. And I just remember, like, man, why am I so hot? You know, I'm sweating and stuff like that. And then next thing you know, I'm on the floor. You know, I can't remember exactly what happened during that, because I was told I was seizuring for about 10 minutes, you know, 9 minutes.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So that's a very long time, you know. You know, by the grace of God, you know, I came out of it.
Did you lose oxygen to your brain during that time, Chris?
So typically with a grand mal seizure, that's what happens. That's a long time for your brain not having any kind of oxygen. And so from when I was seizuring and vomiting. Then when I kind of came out of it, the next day I had about 2 to 3 hours of amnesia. I didn't even know who my 3-year-old daughter was, you know. But they don't tell you that when it hits you, when your memories come back, it hits you hard, you know.
And you described it like a computer clashing or crashing. You said a computer crashing.
So so to put it in context, when I was having my amnesia, my brain had reverted back 3 years. And so my 3-year-old daughter, in my mind, was supposed to be a baby. And so my other children are 3 years younger. And so I am freaking out. I am out of my mind. And when it all came back, the best way I can describe it is, imagine a computer flooding all this information back in your head all at the same time. So every pain, every heartache, every heartbreak, everything that you've experienced in the last several years is coming back in your head at once. And that is a lot. My therapist actually said I experienced three stress-induced brain injuries at like within a 12-hour time frame. And that's a lot for anybody.
With what you're just saying, and you said that stress is one of the culprits, it just seemed like with what so much you just experienced, that you could have had another seizure from everything you just talked about, because that was a lot.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I think as I get older, I learn little tricks. You know, it's okay. You know what? The number one thing is I can't go back in the hospital. You know, I cannot. One, hospital is expensive. You know, but the other thing is, you know, one thing I've learned from my family and just raising 4 kids, especially from 19 to 3, is you can't let everything stress you out. And so for me, it's easier to say, you know what? Okay, I don't like this. This is not a good thing, but you're going to be over here. I'm going to be over here. It's going to be okay. You know, my faith, you know, keeps me going. You know, a great stress reliever for me is I do a lot in my church. And so I'm doing things in my church, I'm doing things in my community. That helps take my mind off of what's going on around me. And so that helps kind of curve that, okay, this is a stressful situation. You know, I think a better way to describe it, and I'm gonna give you a visual, think of a balloon. And so, you know, think of the way you blow up that balloon is if you're adding all this stuff, all these stressors, people working your nerves, all the different things, that balloon keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So eventually what happens, that balloon pops. You can only blow a balloon up so much before it pops, right? And so think of your mind and your body like that. You keep inflating that balloon and balloon with everything. Eventually you're going to pop. And the way that pop manifests in me is a seizure. Or you can blow that balloon up, keep blowing it, and it may not pop. You tie it up and you carry it around with you. eventually that balloon's gonna pop. It's
That's
something
heavy
like,
too. Yes.
yes. But if you blow that balloon up, but then you just start slowly saying, you know what, I didn't like this.
Yes.
Starts deflating.
Yeah.
A little bit more, starts deflating, a little bit more. So then it's just back to regular, uninflated balloon. And so I look at life like that. We're going to have these stressors, but you know what? If you don't engage, if you don't say all the things that come through your mind sometimes, all you're doing is deflating that balloon, and you just keep going.
And that's top behavior because you have to learn how.
I never say it was easy.
Let me read this to you. Let me read this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yes, ma'am.
And that helps keep that balloon from getting bigger, inflating. Yes,
ma'am.
It pops. Because sometimes we just want to be in control of everything and everybody.
Yeah, and you can't do that. You can't do that. I used to tell people when they would tell me they had different things going on or something may be happening to me and it's coming from someone else. And I would just clearly say, I can't live in your crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't live in your crazy. That's your sandbox that you're playing in for yourself. I'm over here, because, sometimes people don't understand that peace there's no price on peace. There's no price on peace. And I've seen too many people, Miss Gail, that in my predicament, had a seizure and didn't make it,
Mm-hmm.
People had strokes, didn't make it, all these different types of things that happened to them. And by the grace of God, I've been given, a chance at life twice,
yes.
On these situations. And so it's with each year that I get older and I try to get wiser and I try to get smarter. And I say, okay, you know what? Okay, I can't do this. But if I do this, before our interview today, I had an appointment with a physical therapist, and I said, oh, just my back's bothering me a little bit and my hip and stuff like that. And you know what? I was there 30 minutes. Wasn't any super duper like high intensity movement she had me do. She's like, I want you to move your legs like this. I want you to do your back like this. And I'm telling you, it changed.
Alleviated the pain. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the pain went away and everything, but it was like little small things that she was
doesn't have to be this big. Yeah.
Exactly. She's like, I didn't use any equipment on you, Chris. And she's like, just do these simple exercises at home, make you feel so much better. And using that same logic, Miss Gail, is like doing these simple exercises would deflate that balloon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced any sense of anxiety, depression? Because we're talking about the mental health part now.
So I have what's called HPA, high performance anxiety. And so a lot of people haven't heard of it, but some people have. If you do your research, or if you talk to anybody in the medical profession, they'll tell you a lot of people in high active roles, whether it's athletes, people in executive positions, business owners, anybody that's operating at a high level. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. That's just statistically what it is. They will have high performance anxiety. So I could be out doing whatever, and you're like, Chris, man, you're just rocking and rolling, you're killing it, But the simplest little thing, you'd be like, oh my gosh, like I messed up. I screwed up. What did I do? You know what I mean? Nobody else can see it. Everyone else can see that everything is going well. But in my mind, I screwed up everything, And so my therapist, we were having a conversation. This is about 2-3 years ago. And I kept mentioning, just getting a little anxious about some things. He said, well, have you ever been diagnosed with anxiety? And I was like, well, no, not really. And I remember it like it was yesterday, Ms. Gail. He's like, I want you to watch a video. And he played a video in his office. And at the end, I was just tears coming down my eyes, stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, I don't need to be crying, stuff like that. But he's like, what's wrong? And it's like, well, that's me. You know, everything that the people on that video were describing, what they were going through, what they were feeling, it was, I could internalize that. I was like, man, I felt the same way. And he's like, Chris, you got anxiety. And for me, just like my son with his diagnosis with autism, I didn't feel a stigma. I didn't feel like it was, taboo, to say, oh, well, got anxiety, you got to take medication. For me, it was like, I'm glad it's labeled so I know what's wrong with me, So, okay, what we need to do to fix me? That's kind of where my mindset was. If you spend all the time looking at the glass half empty, you're always going to forget that it's still half full, So what do I need to do to fix myself? What do we need to do? And the best thing that he gave me was my medication. And I see my therapist once a week. And it's like, I have no shame. I've shared my story at different events, at different speaking functions. And I've had people come up to me like, I didn't know about it, but I feel like I got the same thing. Mm-hmm. Or they may say, I've got that too. I'm just glad somebody else has it. You know what I mean? Like all these different types of things. So I'd rather be a sounding board to say, hey, you know what? I dealt with this. This is how it's helping me. Hopefully it can help you, as opposed to saying, well, I don't want to say anything because, I don't want people looking at me kind of weird and all that kind of stuff, With
everything you said, we've talked about tonight that has happened to you in your short period of time, were there any times that you questioned God? Were there any times you said, God, why me? Because what I'm hearing, you say that you handle each situation as it comes, you deal with it as it comes, and you look at it as a glass half full, not half empty, and you try to you figure a way out. Let me restate that. You look at the glass half full, not half empty, and you figure a way out to look at it in a positive light instead of looking at it in a negative light, where so many people can look at some of the situations that we've talked about in a negative way and respond to it in a negative way, and the results can end up being negative. But you found the way to switch that around. How do you do that? Is it easy to do that, or
never easy? It's never easy.
Okay, because you make it sound easy.
Yes, ma'am. That's actually a really good question. I want to give you a story. And so this is probably 3-4 years ago, and I was at a gas station. I was with my son, and I was just having this one of them days where just things weren't clicking, and I'm not gonna say having a bad day, just wasn't the greatest of days. And so I remember pulling into the gas station, and I was going in to get something, and it was a homeless man. He came up to me, and normally I don't mind helping. Like if I have something, I'll try to help as best I can. But we all have them days where you just don't want to be bothered, right? And so I remember going into the store, and as I'm walking into the store, the gentleman asked me, he's like, hey, how you doing? Do you have anything? And I wasn't even trying to hear anything he had to say. And I was like, oh, I don't have anything. Just kind of kept moving. And he said something, Miss Gail, that really stuck with me. And he said, I see you having a bad day, but God bless you. And I was like, okay, went in, did whatever I had to do, came out, and got in my SUV, and my son's sitting in the back seat watching his tablet. And as I'm about to go and put my vehicle in reverse, it just stopped. And I was like, that just kind of, got irritated with myself, right? And I was like, okay. And so I put it in park for a second, and I put it back in reverse again. And I just stopped again. And so at this point, my son's like, okay, what's going on, Dad? Like, you're just shaking the car and you're growling, right? And he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I'm being disobedient to God. He wants me to do something. I just don't want to do it, right? And so he's like, okay. So I was like, hold on, son. I pulled back in. I parked. I went up to the gentleman. I was like, look, sir, And I said, whatever you want to get out of the store, sandwich, whatever, just go ahead and get it. And so he's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, go ahead and get it. And so I remember walking to the store with him, and he's being very cautious about what he wants to get. You know, he's like, oh, can I get a sandwich? Like, get whatever you want. He'll get some chips, get whatever you want. You know, it's about the fourth time him telling me, get whatever. Sir, get whatever you want, right? And I know the guy at the counter, so I'm like, this gentleman's gonna get whatever. He's gonna use your microwave. I'm gonna pay for it and everything. So he does that, and I pay, and I didn't even wait for him to finish. I left, right? Did that make my day better? Not really, but I did something good for someone else. And so my point in sharing that is that sometimes we're gonna have bad days, no matter what happens. We're still gonna have bad days. You know, the way I like to phrase it is, if I win the lottery, but I'm told I got 3 days to live, is that going to make my day any better? You know, but if I could do something better for someone else, that God is calling me to do that, just because my day didn't get better, I've helped somebody else. And I think if we focus on what we can do for someone else, as opposed to what am I gonna get out of it, or what am I gonna get in return? You know, this world will be a better place. You know, so for me, I go through all these different things because at the end of the day, if I'm talking to someone, whether it's someone that I am leading at church, whether it's someone on social media or someone out in my community, if I can share my story, then you know what? If I can come out of it, you can come out of it. You know.
So to answer the question, when I said you make it look so easy, some of the things you just described, helping someone else have a better day, sharing your story with someone, giving someone else hope, that makes it easier for you to accept some of the things that may happen to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that safe to say?
Yes, ma'am. That is safe to say. Yes, okay. Yeah, okay. But we got there.
Yes. And you said earlier, one of the things that where you are now, what's important to you now is God. And you just talked about the importance of God. And you said something I saw on your Facebook page. I never would have made it without God in my life.
Mm-hmm. That is true. I remember, so my grandmother passed at Christmas Day, 2016. And that was like a hard day. Christmas Day of all days. And she passed, right? And that just broke me. I was mad at God. Like, there's no other word to put and describe what I was feeling, but I was just mad at God. And you know, I struggle. I think I didn't go to church for 2 years during that process because I was just mad. You know, like I just like, okay, you know, here I am believing and trying to do everything I possibly can. Not perfect, but do everything I possibly can. And then the one person that I know as close as my mother, you take her away from me. I struggle with that. And so, you know, for 2 years, I didn't go to church. And 2018 was a very interesting year for me. I was in a car accident. Another time I fell and got a concussion, hit my head in the back of a trailer. And then I had my first seizure that summer in 2018. And I remember laying in the hospital, Miss Gail, 2018. And you know, I literally told God, okay, I get it. Like, God will do whatever he needs to do to get across to us. Now, we can be pig-headed, you know, and that's the one thing about people. God gives us free will, you know. What we do and choose to handle that free will, that is on us. But God will do whatever he needs to do to get our attention. And I think just coming out of that in 2018, I was like, you know what? Okay, God, like, I just have to know you. My walk with you has to be more than what it is right now. You know, I want to do more. I want to understand more. Help me understand what I don't understand, you know? And I think that's why I say God is just so instrumental in my life because he's brought me through so much. Like who I am, my personality, the things that I try to do for people, that is all God. You know, people see my successes, people see the accolades, the things that I do. And I say, it's not me. That's all God. Like, I'm just a conduit of what he's blessed me with. Do I have bad days? Sure, I have bad days just like everybody else. But I just know that if I put everything in his hands, that he'll see me through. And I tell people I'm a mess in progress. And my mess becomes my message, my test becomes my testimony.
Yeah. I have 2 more questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
What does life feel like for you right now?
Life is peace. It's peaceful. Even through my struggles, life is peaceful. I think I'm at my point in life and in my age, it's like I value happiness, joy, and peace more than anything else. I always remind myself of that MasterCard commercial when it says the price of this priceless. That's my life. Like, that's what I look at. My kids are my peace. My family is my peace. My relationship, my walk with Christ, to know him better is part of my life. It's what makes me feel whole. I love doing baptism at church. Like, that is my thing. If there was a passion for just baptism, that would be me, and so that brings me my joy, working with, the high school young men at my church, working with the people that come up to me in church. They always say, "Well, I always see you smiling," or "Well, I see you doing this, I always see you doing that." And that brings me joy. Like that lets me know that I am being seen. I am being heard. I'm not just another person. So that's what my life is.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So one more question. So that was 2. So you have one more for me.
I do have one more.
Okay. All right. I'll count it. Wait a minute. Okay.
This is the Gail Estella Survival Podcast.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell the audience 3 things that has helped you to survive.
3 things that help me survive. God, that's 1. My children, that's 2. And good people like Miss Gail is 3, because I can't do anything in this world if I don't have my tribe around me.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure. I have so much enjoyed this. And I want you, because you are a business owner, so I want you to take the opportunity to plug your business before we sign off. Go ahead and tell us about your show.
So for the last 21 years, I've owned my own insurance and financial advising firm, Trusted Financial Group. We are located at 1721 Ebenezer Road, Suite 290 in Rock Hill. I am revamping my website. But once that's up and running, give it till next Monday. It'll be trustedfinancialgroup.com. But you can find me on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, X. My number is 803-417-1905 or info@trustedfinancialgroup.com.
And give your number one more time, a little slower.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous. 803-417-1905.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You have a great night, okay?
You too, Miss Gail. Thank you so much. God bless. Peace and blessings. And thank you for everything.
You too, sweetheart. Thank you. Bye-bye.